Welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton. Along with me is our Chihuahua-sized champion, Bethany McChesney. And back again, David Magida, fresh off of Dekafit. What was it? Fort Lauderdale? Somewhere in Miami.
West Palm?
West Palm.
Yeah.
In America, which is essentially just Florida. Because as far as I can tell, all of America is Florida and Texas. That's it.
That's the only two places I know of right now.
So do you want me to start here with the results from the weekend?
Yeah.
So on the men's side, we had Rich Ryan, David, and Forrest Bogue, sorry.
Bogue.
Everybody, Bogue. And then on the women's side, we had Faye Stenning, Tara Jackson, and Zuzana Marafash.
And the first question I have is, what is the deal with dude trying to run everybody over 100 meters in? Like, what is that?
Oh, man. If anybody watched the feed, if you heard somebody screaming obscenities, that was me. I don't know, man. It was 5 seconds into the race, and this guy tried to run through us. And he stomped my Achilles, and then he swooped in, couldn't find a line on the inside. So then he swooped out, and he clipped my heel, swooping on the outside. And this was all like, and I'm just chill out. You know,
it's more like chill the fuck out, but that's okay.
Chill out, man. Like we haven't even made the first turn yet. So I was a little gimpy after that. That was not the way I want to open a race ever.
I was watching it, and I swear to God, it was like seeing a little kid in the mall trying to jump around in front of his parents to get to the toy store first. Like he was just all over. I had no idea what he was doing. He was, I think, Noel Medina, I think is his name. I don't know. And he's fast. He looked like a good athletic dude. Like he didn't need to be doing that stuff, you know. He looked like he trained hard, and I don't even want to go to what he was doing on the rowing machine because I got no idea what that was.
Listen, I'm not even going to get into it, but go watch it. That's all I'm going to say. Go watch that. I have no words.
It is bizarre, and I will just say this: that if you're new to a rowing machine or one of these, devices that have been around a long time, you are not going to reinvent a better way to do it. So just,
if you're new to rowing, watch what other people are doing. It's my best advice. If you don't know what we're talking about, seriously, you have to see this.
Yeah.
You have to see this.
So go through that after that point. So you guys took off, and it was established pretty on. You, Rich, Forrest definitely were the class of the heat. How did it go from there on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it shook out kind of similar to what we expected pre-race, which is it would be the three of us, and I think I told you, I said Forrest is good, but I'm not going to sweat him. I'm really concerned about Rich. I was pretty consistent on that from a couple weeks out. I only got asked to do this race. Yancey called me like 2 weeks ago and was like, "Hey, can you run Dekafit?" And I was like, I mean, sure. It's not like, to set the table, man. Like, it is not the same as running high rocks. You are not preparing in the same way as you are for high rocks. It's half the distance. It's way faster. It's way lighter. It's much more aerobic than high rocks. And transitions matter. Like even more than high rocks, way more than high rocks. So it's definitely something that you've got to like dial in, polish up. And I think I needed more than two training sessions devoted to it to really maximize. But yeah, Rich has been really focused on this, and man, you could tell. I mean, he ran great. And so Forrest took off in the lead. Forrest likes to start fast. That's what I've noticed from him in the past. And then Rich and I sat back a little, and then we came out of the lunges, and I came out in second, had a good round of lunges. And then into the row, I came in second, and I had nobody saw it on camera, but I had a major rower issue getting into the rower. And one of the bindings was pulled completely tight all the way when I got to it. So I got my left foot in, and then trying to get my right foot in, I had to like stop and loosen the binding, try to get my right foot in. It still wasn't loose enough. I had to loosen the left one to get my left foot in. Then I had to loosen the right one. Still couldn't get my foot in. Had to loosen it again. Finally got my foot in, and then I'd lost a lot of time. And then I rode fast, but you lost so much time there that I came out in fourth place. I came out behind Crazy Rower Style. and which is ludicrous. But I had issues getting my feet out of the bindings too. So very weird. Just like couldn't get that together. Lost 13 or 15 seconds to Rich at that station. And then it was just trying to dig out of that hole. And I kind of put myself in an aerobic place that I didn't want to be, going into the ski erg, and then he smoked me on the ski erg because I was gassed when I came in there. But you feel it from just in your lungs, just real deep, kind of like how you do in the stadium races when you run these. So it's really about kind of keeping out of that zone is the key to these races. So I was like kind of in recovery for a couple rounds. And then once we hit the farmer's carry, I started feeling better and put a little surge there, caught up to Forrest entering the assault bike, and then passed him on the assault bike. And then he didn't have legs after that, it looked like.
He did look pretty soft coming out of that assault bike. It was the one time you saw him doing almost like a little bit of a shuffle to get his run started. I was actually worried at the time that maybe he had hurt himself or something.
Yeah. So then it was, and then I was just, damage controlling from Rich from that point forward, and, gained a few seconds at each station, but, he had pulled away by too much at that point. So, he ran amazing, and Forrest ran great too. I spoke with Jack Bauer a bit after the race, and he indicated that the run times for Forrest and for Jack were like a minute 15 slower than they were in Dallas, if that tells you anything about how hard this course was by comparison. So it's kind of disappointing because to think, man, we would have gone under 30 if not for maybe a harder run section. But it's the brakes, man.
And it actually goes right back to the same thing as High Rocks, right? Because High Rocks had that 3-lap course, and then Deka set up the 2-lap course for this. Consistency, right? Like, I just wish they'd stay the same every time, but I get it. Different venues.
2 laps when they're 250 meters each. I mean, if you think about this, if the lap on average is taking you 45 or 50, let's call it 50 seconds just for simplicity, right? 50 seconds. Let's assume a turn takes 4 seconds to complete. That's 16 seconds. That means approximately a third of the time you're running, you're turning. That is insane. We were running like 9 seconds at a time between turns. So you can never really get fully rolling because you're constantly decelerating, reaccelerating. So it did make the run pretty tough. That being said, everybody had to do it. So
yeah, and those turns weren't like, it's not like on a track, right, where you get a nice long sloping NASCAR style turn. Like, this is
like 90-degree turns.
Yeah, like it was not great.
They could have softened the corners a little more than they did. But I mean, overall, the layout of the course was so awesome because the difference between that and High Rocks, where like in High Rocks, you come in to a zone and you run through the rock zone and you hope somebody points you to the correct zone, but like they're all scattered like in random locations that don't make any logical sense. Versus at Deka, where you just stop at the next zone in the line and they're just around the perimeter, the entrances. I thought it was a better layout in terms of making it very smooth.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I did High Rocks, there were so many people that messed up the order. Mm-hmm. Even though they have the big blow up things with the numbers on it, it's just amazing how you can not realize where you're supposed to go next.
I mean, if I hadn't done like 10 simulations before High Rocks and had the thing so dialed in and like memorized, I would have messed that up too, because you like in High Rocks, you come in and the first station was the ski erg. It's like right there. Right. And then the next time you run down to the other side of the rock zone on the right and you do the sled push. And the next time it's all the way to the end and it's the pull. But the next time after that, it's back to the beginning side and it's the burpee broad jumps. And then the 5th round is at the beginning, but then the 6th round's down all the way in on the left. And then the 7th round is back at the beginning on the left. And you're like, what is the order to this? Like this is mayhem. And then the wall balls aren't even in there. So in Deka, it was like literally, it's just like you stopped one station earlier on your laps and they're always measured exactly the same. I thought that the layout for that was brilliant.
I had spoke with Yancey and he said they even take into consideration the, whatever it is, 10 to 20 meters that you lose with each lap stopping earlier. And so the laps weren't like, if you check your watch at the end, it should be right, but the laps don't seem exactly the same. They measured everything out as a whole and not just individually.
The first lap of each round is slightly longer than the second lap. Yeah. So yeah, it's clever.
Yeah, very well thought out. And I think that too, it was so much easier to follow that way as well. Just like you say, you always knew, boom, okay, he's going to go here. Boom, he's going to go here. It was.
Yeah. And I think it was easier for them to film, and it was easier for, like, my parents were there. It was the first race they've come to of mine in like 8 years. And yeah, it was pretty cool because they live like 45 minutes from there. So, you know, they were able to follow the whole thing and see everything. Like, the reason that they never come to my races is they're like, well, I don't want to go to a Spartan race, watch you start, and then see you finish an hour later. Like, I want to see you race. So this is a great opportunity if you're like a family member or, you know, a spectator of the sport to really see it all. Pretty cool.
So you said how great Rich was and how much he's prepared for this. And I mean, I've followed some of Rich's posts and everything and his podcast, and he has been, you know, targeting these DEKA races, and he's off. Number one, just visual test. He looked shredded and ready to go. Like, he was jacked. I was like, wow, I didn't know Rich was that fit. But
I was trying to tell you before.
He was looking great, and then just flying. So I mean, is it going to take to be on the top of this stuff? And I'm laying this out there. This is hybrid racing now because I'm sick of trying to figure out what to call it. And we call you guys hybrid athletes. It's hybrid racing. I'm done. That's what I'm calling it from now.
Yeah, I think it's good.
So there we go. So is it going to be a thing to be successful at the hybrid racing? You need to focus 100% on that, because I know I see with guys like yourself or like Rich Ryan who are got the talent and then are going to put the focus into that. I don't see you being able to as well focus on beast distances for Spartans and marathons and everything else and still be at the top level eventually.
Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I think even focusing on DEKA versus Hyrox is like totally different. So, like, I'm not dialed in for DEKA at all. And now I've spent the last couple of weeks really focused on DEKA. So that hasn't been helping my Hyrox training, because, you know, Hyrox just requires you to just be so much stronger, and you're running more at like threshold versus in DEKA, you're running way sub threshold. You're running 5K pace. You're running 5K time trial pace through the whole thing. And, or at least 5K time trial effort. When I've done my sims and I don't have all these turns and everything like that, my simulations, my last one, I did the 5K of the running in 15:27, and much slower in the actual DEKA course, at least in this DEKA course. Rich and I were apparently, he told me this morning, he said, I think our run splits were only 1 second different.
Oh,
wow.
That's pretty crazy. But he's a heck of a runner. And I was like, man, you know, like, I definitely needed more preparation for this one. But this is all, DEKA's like so aerobic. It's just like, it's like aerobic engine race is like literally what it is. There is not a single piece of strength in there that was really like strength.
No.
So it's just a very different experience. There's like the assault bike was like the most strength of any of it, and that's aerobic engine. So yeah, Hyrox is going to be just a very different experience when we go back to it now. But I think DEKA does do you that solid of like getting your body ready to feel like extreme levels of pain and fatigue, like at a higher intensity than Hyrox, at least for your lungs. And then, you know, Hyrox obviously deadens your legs worse than anything.
Well, I think when we talked to Yancey, his goal with Dekafit was that it would be an event that anybody at any gym could do. So unlike Hyrox, where you couldn't get anyone from any gym to just show up and actually move that sled. So he definitely has accomplished what he set out to do with Dekafit. So
for sure. I don't know that I entirely agree with that philosophy. I think to an extent, like sure, if Dekafit is your event that like anybody can do, it's awesome, right? Like the idea of like someone who's never towed a starting line before coming and doing it, like that's really cool. At the same time, what's next for those people, right? Like, is there something else to keep them engaged to another level, or is that like it? And I personally think that it should be like Dekafit and Dekafit heavy. And then, so there's another level up that people can go. And so like, he disagreed with like the High Rocks philosophy of having like an open division and a pro division. I actually think it's a much better system. It's having open and pro separate, or having like another level up for people to aspire to. I think that bringing I never agree with bringing the ceiling down. I always agree with like having a ceiling that's high enough to challenge the top level athletes, and then bringing people up to it, like pushing people to raise their level up to it or as close to it as they can. But that's just been my training philosophy at my gym. Like the way we coach people is we teach the hardest progression that we can, and then we provide regressions back down for other people that need it, but then give them the opportunity to grow into that progression.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I mean, like you say, High Rocks does it that way. They have their open division. And I mean, even you think to CrossFit where they have scaled versions, right? So they have their version for their opens for their top end athletes, and then you just scale it down as you go. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a debate. And I mean, I think numbers will decide what way is right. I kind of like the idea you're saying too, because I would like to go in there and do, I mean, we briefly discussed maybe, you got the 60-pound dead balls over, and maybe jacking those up, whatever, 120 pound for men. And
that was the number that I said. I said 10 reps at 120 for men and 10 reps at 80 or 90 for women would be amazing. That would change the race so dramatically. Just that one thing.
Do the same on the sled. Pile some weight onto, or the tank, pile some weight onto that tank.
No weight necessary. They can just crank the resistance.
Oh, level. I thought they were full resistance. I thought they were at jack for that.
I think they were at 2 and 3. They go to 5?
I can't afford one of them tanks. So
I don't love the sled, the M1 sled. Like it's super functional for that purpose. But that was my first time ever pushing one. And I did in my initial push realize within a couple steps, oh, you could push this thing really hard. It doesn't actually make it go much faster. Yeah. So I just saved the energy and just kind of semi-pushed it. But then on the pull, I would rip it, and that was making it go faster. So it was interesting.
Now, I have a question about those tanks, actually. I've never tried one, never seen one up close. Like I said, I can't afford one. I can't afford to go to a gym that has one.
$2,000,
but
right?
If you actually took the back side of it and got the back wheels off the ground, is the resistance all in one set of wheels, or is it in both? So could you cut the resistance in half by almost getting the back wheels off the ground?
I think there was something I saw in the rule book that
okay,
it has to stay on the ground. Like you have to keep all 4 wheels on the ground or something.
You're always trying to find ways around things.
No, gaming the system is it's what we do, right? And I called Yancey the night before the race, and I was like, hey man, like, it doesn't say anything in the rule book about like what part of the box you have to go over in the step overs. Like, can I work the corner? And he's like, oh, shoot, like we're going to have to write that into the rule book now. So then they made an announcement in the pre-race briefing. You have to go side to side because I mean, guys are going to find ways to game it until there's rules.
If you don't do it, someone you're competing at will. Competing against will do it. And I mean, like I said, ninja competitions I've gone to for a long time. We do a course walk around at the beginning of the competition, and everybody is going secretly to their buddy. Hey, if I do this over here, then I can get an advantage. Don't tell anyone I'm going to do it. Right. And so it's constantly skirting your way, not around the rules, not breaking the rules, but skimming within the rules,
just being savvy. Right. And everything else in there. I mean, like guys, I've seen guys in like the Deca miles that have been posted. There's 0 hip extension on the lunges, for example. Not even like okay, like it's debatable. Like, oh, we just switched our legs and never really even stood up. Like, so there are some movements that are tough to judge, or like you have to be a stickler on the judging, and that does make this stuff more complicated. Like, I do think like when you had what we had at like High Rocks, for example, is like you're doing the burpee broad jumps and there's literally somebody like checking you and making you take a step backwards every time like they thought your rep was questionable, like was really cool, really aggravating or really stressful. I would say stressful. But it keeps you honest.
Yeah. And I remember when Yancey first set this up and we spoke with him, and that was one of the ones I questioned was especially lunges, like just from doing so many virtual competitions throughout the past couple of years, seeing full hip extension, I'm like, oh, that is going to be a nightmare. One, they're either going to have to be really slack on it and just let stuff go, or like you say, they're going to have to be CrossFit and no rep. And that won't go through. That won't stay consistent because they're not going to train up the volunteers before the event to be
Well,
that.
And
nasty.
then you got one volunteer who's a hardo, and you got one volunteer who's like, well, I'm not trying to interfere with the race. And then boom, you've changed the race. So there are some issues. I mean, look, with all of these gripes and everything, like overall, a really, really well put together event, really fun. I'd say an awesome intro for the average person into hybrid racing. And like, to answer your question from before, yes, if you want to be really good at it, you need to focus on it. But like, that being said, like, are you trying to tell me like Ryan Kempson couldn't jump into this and just be a monster like right away? I think he would. There's nothing heavy in it to really hurt him, you know? So I think
what I think is though, is that guys at that level, so guys who are already at that level, like who, you know, obviously have that athletic prowess, that fitness, all that already backing them. What if you have Kempson and you have Rich Ryan, you have yourself, the person who's going to win is the person who has specialized and focused their training towards that particular event.
Probably.
That's what I'm getting at.
With the exception of Ryan Atkins, who could probably just beat everybody.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about him in a bit.
Yeah, like look, for example, like I think I stand a much better chance against him in High Rocks than I do at Dekafit. But you know, I just don't think I don't think there's anything that would affect him at Dekafit. You know, like you're gonna put him on the assault bike, he's gonna kill all of us.
Oh yeah.
You're lucky it's only 500 meters.
Yeah, or 25 calories. Or
25 calories, yeah. Sorry, 500 meters in the road, yeah. He'll be done that in a couple seconds. So
it's ludicrous. Somebody told me that he did something insane, like 300 calorie assault bike in like 13 minutes or something that like my jaw dropped when I heard how fast he did it.
And then he'd get off and go, yeah, you know, I felt good, you know, went for it, had a good run, you know.
I'm like
sandwich and
I'm pretty sure I did that a couple years ago in like 18 minutes or something. It wasn't fast.
All right, so you know what? We'll wrap up with Deca really quick. Okay, so now just congratulations. Officially, you are a Deca Podium finisher like me. See, I got one of these. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Deca Open. Anyway,
well done, Dave.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That was the whole point of this podcast, is to congratulate me. I just want to say, is there anything though from the event that you thought could be tinkered with? Because here's the glaring truth, and I hate to bring this up. The attendance was not what I would have liked to see.
No.
And so why is that? How do we fix that? I think number one, the biggest thing is live streaming needs really good commentary. You know, I don't know why that was missing, but you know, it could have used it. But honestly, what do you think? How do you think they can ramp it up? Is it as simple as bigger prize money?
Yeah, that'll help. That'll help a lot. Having a real series. I think a series helps as opposed to just one-offs, like making people go to multiple. Yeah. And you know, like again, like they're just rolling this thing out. Like they did some last year, but this is the first time that they have a season, really, a full season of it coming. It's hard. The South Florida market's a really good market for racing, but there's so many races down there that, like, I used to live down. That's where I found obstacle racing in the first place, was when I was living in Miami. And there's a race or two races every weekend down there. So I wonder, like, part of it is just like, did they not get the attendance that they wanted? Because, and I actually don't know what their attendance numbers are. Maybe they're
no, neither do I.
But could they have done better if it was in a market that, you know, was a little more deprived for an event? That's one. Two, I just thought like the hype behind. Sorry, I've got a garbage truck picking up outside my house. Apparently, you know, one thing like with High Rocks was like they did an amazing job of bringing in all these gyms, and I think Deca's doing a great job with that too. But like that is going to be the lifeblood of any of these brands, like for these sports. And then the broadcast. I mean, it has to be better. I mean, I was so like, for fans who don't know, or people who are following who don't know, like the plan for Deca originally in 2020 was that they were going to roll out the first event in Denver at the Denver Broncos practice facility in this amazing indoor facility. It was going to be so cool. It was going to be in March of 2020, like literally right when everything got shut down for COVID. I think it was going to be like the 23rd of March. And I had signed a contract to be the voice of Dekafit. So I wasn't going to race any of these anyway. I was just going to broadcast them. We had plans for 6 to 8 cameras per event. We were going to have a catwalk that I was going to be on the center of, that I could walk back and forth and see everything, while simultaneously we were going to have a camera at each end of that could pivot around, and each could show half of the run course. And then at the same time, we were going to have a situation where we'd have guys with shoulder cams running up in the zones and getting great footage. And so you would have perfect footage, live coverage, everything was going to be good. And then, budget cuts, this and that. We got one guy with a microphone without a microphone, or one guy with a camera without a microphone with a windscreen on it, like running around, breathing heavy with no commentary. They did it last minute because there was people wanted something. Yeah. But it was supposed to be on ORM first, right?
Yeah. And things happened there. We don't know what happened, but it was still better than nothing. It's still better that they got it out there at least, I think. Yes, it can definitely be improved. And that guy on the one camera without the microphone worked his ass off. He pushed hard.
Sure did.
He ran with Faye for a little while. I was really impressed with that. I was like, wow, I couldn't keep up with her that long. But they definitely needed more. Definitely needed to, even if it was another camera, you could probably do really well with 3 cameras. I mean,
yeah, a few cameras, and then you got to get some kind of squadcast situation going, something where you can get actual audio in there. Because they did a post-race interview, and I was like, what did everybody say? Like, I couldn't hear anything.
No, when we watched it too, I mean, every once in a while, Jared Cogswell would come up and he'd say stuff, and he had his mask on because he's supposed to, and the camera TV jacked, and you couldn't hear him. It's not his fault, he was trying hard.
No, they tried. I mean, I think it would have helped a lot. Certainly the viewership would have been higher. Certainly, I think you would have gotten the effect you wanted if you actually produced a broadcast, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money to do that sort of thing. But like the lack of a microphone attachment, a unidirectional microphone with a windscreen is like $100, and then you have that asset forever. So I'm just surprised.
Well, I hope they don't give up on it. I hope they stick with it and keep trying, because it won't take much to improve it a lot.
I don't think they'll give up. I think that they're going to push into this, because whether or not the attendance was good at this event or not is kind of irrelevant. The Deca Strong, the Deca Strong event, the Deca Miles that they do at all these gyms are profitable, and they're profitable for the gym, and then they're profitable for Spartan. So there's no reason not to continue that and then have these like culmination events at least, a few times a season.
So just one last thing about the Deca stuff, and I just want to throw out the winners and stuff from the mile and the strong, just because they don't get as much say. And I noticed it wasn't posted on Athlinks yet. So for the Deca mile, Alec Linus, he won with a 20:43. Benjamin Schofield a 20:21, and Jean Ramirez 22:12. For the women, Cassidy Nichols. Sorry, my apologies. Congratulations. She got a 22:33. Elizabeth Hain 24:10, and Valerie Mendez 24:41. They're all really good times. Cassidy's was the 3rd fastest Deca mile for women of all time, so that was a pretty good run.
That's like not unexpected, by the way.
No, it's not. No. Deca Strong, John Ramirez 14:32, Brennan Lind 15:32, Kenneth Blatton the third 15:52. That's right. Cassidy again 14:41. Heidi Williams, the ageless wonder. What a beast. 15:39 for 2nd place, and Margie Berger, I don't know, get all French. 17:34. So those are the results for the rest of the weekend. So now I'm going to ask you, well, we want to go on to some talk. I don't know if you saw it, but did you see anything of the Savage race?
Some of it, yeah, actually. I looked some of that up. That was interesting.
Yeah, Beth, do you want to go in on that first?
Yeah, so, well, we were talking a little bit before how there really wasn't a whole lot of coverage, but it was all just basically of that last rig. which was kind of what the whole race came down to.
Yeah.
And Ryan Woods had a DNF. Ryan Atkins came in when Ryan Woods is struggling on the rig and swoops in and gets it first try.
Of course he did. Of course he did. But I was surprised that Woodsy had a pretty good gap on him going into that, huh? That's interesting. I don't know what that says about anybody's fitness, or just a familiarity thing. Like some of the Savage obstacles are like, they're kind of weird. And like the first time you do them, they're not like super fast. Like I don't know if they had the one with the wheel where you turn it with your feet.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But like, I think I spent like a minute longer on that than like anybody else when I ran Savage Race. Cause I was like, what is this? And like, I probably went the wrong direction with it, and, like over versus under or whatever. And so, yeah, there's a few there that like you need to do the race once or twice to really, I think, flourish. And yet Atkins still won.
Two things I saw.
It's been 14 months now too. So
yeah, it's not like he hasn't been going hard though,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think it says more about Woods' condition and that Woods was really ready for it and prepared to go than anything about Atkins. I thought Ryan just ran so well.
Yeah, and he's good at Savage Race. He's done a lot of them. So if you take this back though to the North Carolina Spartan race, Mark Gaudet had left Woods in the dust on day one and then ran the wrong way with the bucket. And that's why Woods beat him and Gawicki beat him. So I kind of am like, but is Woods in his peak running condition? I don't know. And also like, don't ever take like one race, one off and be like, oh, this guy is peaking, this guy's not. Like people have good days, people have bad days. Was Atkins unfamiliar with some of these things? But some of these other guys are also really good. Like that was a deep field at Savage. Zooch. James, yeah. He's fast.
He ended up third.
He got third. And then the dude who got second, is that the guy from Jacksonville who ran the open race from the Jacksonville race? Is that who that was?
I didn't know if he ran open or age group. I think he ran age group.
Yeah, the guy
that was so fantastic. He should have obviously been an elite.
He had to qualify. But that guy I think was a college miler, and he's a beast. And apparently he can do obstacles. So hey.
Here's the thing, like I watched him and I consider myself a very much an obstacle guy. And so I was the same thing, watching him run the whole thing and waiting for him to falter. And he did a lot of stupid things on the obstacles, but he had immense grip strength and he was able to just, okay, I screwed up. I'm just going to hang on and I'm going to retry. And he was like an incredible runner with incredible grip strength. And when he learns,
he's a good obstacle racer.
Oh yeah. When he learns a little more techniques, is just going to kill him. Like you were right about Woods knowing the courses, and you saw him. I think it was Anchors Away. He did that probably 5-6 seconds faster than Atkins did it, right? And
like my first, I think when I did Anchors Away, like I literally like slipped off it and had to do it again. It's like the first time I failed an obstacle in like forever. But like this Savage obstacles are no joke. Like you gotta like learn them. Like I had a couple where I was just like, this is really sketchy. Like they're 2 sheets to the wind or whatever that obstacle. Yeah. That's hard. And then they've got like that like inverted ladder thing that you crawl under. Like that's hard, especially when you're gassed from doing the 2 sheets, whatever thing right before, and then Anchors Away right afterwards or whatever order they have them in. And then that cheese board isn't easy, and like. There's a lot of stuff at Savage that's just like, there's an example of a race that was like, we don't care. We're not going to make it easy for you.
Yeah.
And I really respect it.
Yeah. Savage is also different, I've found, than Spartan too, because they're usually flatter courses. So Spartan, they'll send you through the woods and you're bushwhacking through half the race. So Atkins does do a lot of his running in the mountain. So he generally doesn't prefer flat and fast. So.
Yeah, it's flat, and yet like the race that I ran in Maryland was just like peanut butter mud that they were dropping us in like into ravines where you'd go like waist deep into the mud and you'd be like, what? Like you're just stuck in it. And like somehow Kempson just like runs through it like you know, like a little, he's just like prancing through it like it's nothing. And I'm like, I can't move. So I'm much more like, now I'm getting much more into the idea of like, I like the fitness races where like it's a controlled environment and I don't have to worry about that. And it's just like, can I turn over and can I lift up heavy things? Like, I like that.
We went, and the whole thing again, Woods got there first. Atkins comes, he streams by. I believe that I think Sean was his name, the sprinter, Roberts, and he comes and streams by, and then James Zirk streams by, and Woodsy calls it a day. So let's start with that. Okay, yeah, let's start with that. So Woods doesn't just give up his band. He says nuts to this and walks off. That's it. He's done. So he DNFs. He doesn't finish the course non-complete. He just walks off.
That's tough.
That's tough. And now the thing is, I've heard different opinions about this, and really the only person's opinion matters about it is really Woods. But some people will say, hey, that's not great for the sport to be, you know, like that. And my personal opinion is if he had a race the next day, I would totally agree. That's smart strategy.
Yeah. And was his grip blown? I mean, like there's certain muscles that like can bounce back. Like your legs can always bounce back, right? But like if your hands go, like if your grip goes, it might be gone for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It might be gone for the rest of the weekend. Like, you ever done like a really hard grip workout and then you like can't turn your door handle that night? Like, yeah. So I mean, some of that was self-preservation, I'm sure. And I think he just knew like, I wasn't happening when I felt better. It's not going to happen now.
Yeah.
No, I haven't talked to him about it, but like, that's a completely reasonable decision to make.
Yep. But should he have cut the band, crossed the finish line, just to, you know, be complete? And that's where I've seen people are having issue with that. And it's both ways. I see it both. Personally, but I'm not that level, right? But I'm a finish it guy. But I'm not that level.
How close was it?
Like 100 meters. They just had the hoist and then the finish line.
I think when you're at this highest level, it's like he thought he was going to win the race, and instead he's going to get not even count in the pro. Like, why finish?
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I don't care. Honestly, I'm fine with whatever decision you make. If he conducts himself admirably at like every race, I have nothing but respect for him. So he can do whatever he wants.
So maybe what we need to say is, and this comes up a lot of time for open racers, is run your own race.
Yeah, worry about yourself.
So those are people that are upset at Woods. Well, run your own race. You get that same right, so does he. So,
I mean, I tell people all the time, don't worry about me. Worry about yourself. And, you know, you can worry about the guy that you're competing against, as in like, are they competing fairly? And are they, you know, is that person being ethical?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But don't worry about like what Woodsy, if you're not head to head with Woodsy for the win, why do you care what he does?
Yeah. And so going one back to the rig there, and you talked about big leads and people maybe trying for a long time. So even a more extreme situation with the women, Lindsay came into the rig with what I'm going to estimate is a 10-minute lead, give or take, and then had the same struggles as Ryan Woods.
Wow. I didn't actually know this.
Okay. So Lindsay, also I'll spell it out for everyone, including you who didn't see it. Lindsay dominated the whole race. It was quite obvious. She just ran away with it. Did really well on every obstacle until she got to the rig at the end, had about a 10-minute lead and was just floundering. She couldn't get, those cheese boards were just eating her up. And yeah, and as she was going, and to Lindsay's credit, still smiling on the sidelines, laughing, having a good time, class all the way.
Yep.
But eventually, other women started to show up, and they did get through. I believe it was the 5th place woman eventually got there, went through the rig, no problem, and won. So she probably was 15 minutes behind Lindsay at the time they get to the rig.
Wow.
And Amy Panchek, who is an obstacle machine, and she just like, boom, 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 off I go, see you later. Run through it. So the whole point, Lindsay ends up not in podium. I think she eventually did give up her band, but you know, I believe she crossed the finish line a little. But anyway,
and then the girl that was third did try that rig for 45 minutes.
Yes,
45 minutes.
45 minutes. Yeah, Chrissy McFarlane.
This is like the Battle Frog quandary, right? Like all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Can it be hard without being too hard? I think like Ryan Atkins would never argue like, oh, the obstacles were too hard. Like you'll never hear that from him. Like, and Kempson would never argue that. And Kempson is one of those like, no excuses kind of guy. He's just no excuses. But I think there is a level of like, we should be realistic. If the top 4 people couldn't get through it, and 15 minutes later, along comes somebody else, and they get through the obstacle, something is a little wrong.
Yeah. No, and Chrissy McFarland is a Savage girl. She races them all the time. So for her to struggle for 45 minutes, I think it maybe was on the side of being a bit too hard.
And Savage does this thing where they stack the really tough grip obstacles like back to back. I don't know if they did in this race, but they have in races I've done with them in the past.
They did do a nasty thing here where they had their Colossus, which is a water obstacle, right before the rig.
Oh, so your hands are all wet.
So you are soaking wet going into that rig. And it was a tough rig. For me, I looked at it and I thought, okay, it's tough, but mostly it's a cheese board. If you could get across the horizontal cheese board and save yourself decent amount of grip strength, the rest was not terrible. It was drooping rope ladders, which are tricky. They take grip strength and bicep strength. It's not easy, but I've thought I've seen Savage with harder rigs,
I think it's the culmination of all the stuff that built up to it, right? And you, Bethany, you make a great point about how like Spartan really uses the terrain against you. Yes, Savage uses obstacles just against you, and there does come a point where like your biceps and your grip are just gone. And in my last Savage that I ran, my upper body was just basically cooked by the end. I was on just exclusively marathon training, and I was like so weak, and that was hard. And it is a better test of your physical strength, but it's different because so much of it is like, okay, well, was I really efficient on this previous obstacle and now I feel fine? Or did I use a ton of strength to just kind of muscle through it because it's so difficult, unfamiliar, whatever it might be? And of the men, did only Woods fail of the top?
There were other men that struggled, but the top podium guys, they got through pretty good. I think essentially it just comes down to a question is, does each race have its place? So like you say, Spartan is terrain, relatively easier obstacles. Savage is less terrain, although sometimes, like you say, they throw you in the mud, but definitely difficult obstacles. Do they need to dumb it down, for lack of a better term? Or do they just say, hey, this is how our races are run. If you want to win our races, like if you're, and for an example, if you're Lindsay Webster and you want to come jump in and win our races from Spartan, you're going to have to up your obstacle game. You might have to take some of your running training, back off on that, and get in the ninja gym and train your obstacles.
I guess I kind of invert the argument from what Spartan has, which is like, okay, for Savage, great. So to win their race, you've got to be really good at obstacles. Yeah. What percentage of people got through all those obstacles?
Oh, it was low.
It's very low. And
very low.
Is it so low that it's discouraging?
No, they change it for the open wave. When they go to the open wave, they change the obstacle, make it easier.
Okay. So this is my argument that Spartan should be doing. Yeah. But again, I like a lot of this comes down to like, is Savage Race making money? Because if they're making money, if they're profiting, hey man, like who cares? Yeah. Like if they have a successful business model where they can make it hard for the pros and still make it challenging for novices and open athletes and people who want to go and have fun and they leave happy, then they're doing a good job.
Yeah. I think so too. I think that is the thing. If they're still getting their crowd, they're still getting their signups, and Savage has a super loyal following. Like they have a great following and they show up and they pay. I personally really like the race. I hope they don't change it because it's to my advantage. So I'm all about that. I'm never going to be that fast, but I can crush the obstacles. So let's keep them hard.
And listen, if somebody is 15 minutes behind and ends up on the podium or winning, did she won? Hey, it's the great equalizer, right?
Yeah. No, I've been telling my wife, she's pretty solid on obstacles. I'm like, you need to go down to Savage and just walk the course and then just walk your way to an age group podium.
Just go for a fun run and then just crush obstacles along the way.
Exactly. Walk your way to the age group podium all the time. No problem.
Yeah, it's like the High Rock sled. It's the great equalizer.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting that, and the other thing I do want to say about Lindsay, again, class act, went on Instagram and didn't say the obstacles were too hard, said it was fantastic, said it was great, was awesome to see them matter so much, and she can't wait to do it again. Just classic Lindsay. She is what she is.
Yeah, and over the years, she's gotten so much better at obstacles because, like, when she first broke in the sport, she was downright terrible at obstacles, and like she would just blaze the course, and then like you'd hope nothing went wrong, and now she's gotten very good at obstacles. I'm actually at this point like surprised to hear she struggled, But again, it's an unfamiliarity thing. She also hasn't done an obstacle race in so long, like.
And gyms here have been closed for a year, so you're not in the rock climbing gyms and you're not going to the ninja gyms to brush up on things. Like everything people are doing is in their homes right now.
Yeah, and you're right. But they do a lot of the stuff at home with their fingerboards and they do like rock climbing out in the mountains and like that, But I think I saw something that Ryan said on his Instagram, like he hadn't gone rock climbing in a long time, and they just went out and climbed.
Well, a lot of our sites are actually closed, though. Like all the crags are closed.
This is something that makes no sense to me, right? Like, we determined over a year ago that outside was the only safe place, and then we proceeded to close everything outside. Like here in DC, they closed all the tracks. Why would you close all the tracks? Now we all have to congregate in the same little parks everywhere. Like, it's very poor thinking from the top down on that stuff because, outdoor rock climbing should never be affected. Outdoor going hiking and stuff, like let people do this stuff. What are we doing? So, I mean, look, normalcy's around the corner, guys. I know that.
It has been embarrassing in Canada to say that we have fallen behind the South of America. It's just not. It's not a good look for us. We're not feeling confident.
We have not nailed it here in the States, but we have not by any means nailed it. But we've had a little bit better rollout with the vaccine and all that stuff. So there's I feel like for us here, like we're just about to like break through all that. Like, is there any like light at the end of the tunnel in Canada right now for like reopening stuff?
No.
Oh gosh.
No.
We're all going to do like Lindsay and Ryan, and we're going to jump on little planes and we're going to fly across and get our
We'll
shot.
just get Ryan's dad to fly us all over.
You know how much money that guy could be making? Just flying, harboring people across the border.
Yeah, because you guys are allowed to come here. You just can't go back, right?
Yeah.
And we can't drive across. We got to fly.
So at this point right now, yes. What's that?
We can't drive across, can we?
No. So right now, a lot of our pro Olympic stream athletes, they're all in the States doing all these qualifying meets. And that's just what every Canadian who's at that level has to do at this point. Like if you have any hope of running an Olympic qualifying time. So they're all racing there. But when they come back, they have to, and I've had some friends who've kind of told me, so you have to stay in a COVID hotel. And they're crazy expensive. And it's only these certain hotels, and then you have to quarantine for 2 weeks after.
It's like, it's just so difficult. And you look at I don't know what's going to happen with the Olympics and that. No spectators, I assume?
Yeah, no spectators. It's still supposed to happen, but no spectators. And they might split events up in different locations.
As they probably should, but, it's just... unfortunate, man. We're close. Like, look, we're having events again here in the States. Like, we're close. And, the thing is, I was able to convince my parents to go to an indoor race. So, like, I think the mental, like the psychological aspect of it, like people have been very fearful for a long time. And like, that is beginning to pass. Once people have been like vaccinated for a couple months, they start to like stress out a little bit less. Maybe some people weren't stressed to begin with, but the people that were concerned, they are a month or two after their vaccination, they're starting to resume normalcy. And that's been really nice to see because people were very compliant at the DECA event. They were at High Rocks too. Like for the most part, people were wearing masks and stuff like that. They were, because Spartan is what I think people have to understand is that Spartan and High Rocks and all these indoor events, all these outdoor events, Savage too, they're making you wear a mask because they have to show proof of concept so that they can go to another state and be like, look how compliant everyone was. We enforced it. We followed the standards, and please let us have an event in your state. And so if everybody can just get on board with that when they're at these events, it's going to go a long way towards us being allowed to have events in other states. That's really, really important to anybody, whether you agree with it or not. Just do it for the day. And I promise you it is beneficial.
100% agree. I have one more savage question for you, and I don't know that either one of you noticed this. During the time Lindsay was struggling, Ryan was obviously on the sidelines cheering for her, as normal. He came onto the course and tried to demonstrate to her how to do the rig. Essentially on-course coaching. Is that something that, now in an open wave, obviously, who cares? But in an elite pro wave, is that something that should be allowed? And is it like, I'm thinking that might be in the rule book somewhere, as, you know, I know it is in Spartan, you can't have on-course coaching.
Well, he was a participant in the race.
But his race was over.
Yeah, I don't know how that qualifies even in Spartan if he were to go, because he goes back on the course and cheers for her.
Yeah.
In Spartan too. I don't know how that exactly works. Like a coach, no, but a participant, I don't know.
He went on the rig again?
He went on the rig again to demonstrate how he thinks she should.
Was he, maybe he was just running a second lap, you know, like, I don't know, like where because they let you do that stuff. You know, that's encouraged, right? People go back and play. Alex Walker's always going back and playing on the obstacles afterwards, right? At Savage. I think I heard she did that at the last one, and, you know, people do it. And, you know, it's like plausible deniability to extent.
The first time I've seen you be like political and democratic in your answer.
I'm not just like, listen, jerks, this is how it is.
Right, yeah.
No, well, I jumped inside the barriers multiple times while the women's race was going on to give instructions to Faye for how to improve her technique at Deca. I jumped into the barrier to help her with her ski erg. I jumped into the barrier to help her with to give her and Cassidy updates on where other people were on their assault bike calories, you know. And is that obstruction, cheating, whatever it is? I don't think so.
I personally think going on the course for coaching, anything like that, I don't have a problem with it. Sideline coaching, don't have a problem with it. But to actually go on the rig and physically demonstrate how to do, I think that's a step too far. That's just my opinion. Yeah, love Ryan and Lindsay. I'm like a super fanboy of them both. But yeah, I think that one's too far in my mind.
If it was your wife?
No way. She'd kill me on it. I don't have to. She's probably finished before me, so there's no need for it.
Oh, well, there you go.
And she still didn't finish it. It might be different if she won and it came down to a battle with her and somebody else.
Yeah, that could have made it definitely an issue. But that's just where I'm at. It's not a big deal. That's how I feel. I think
I'm not going to make a mountain out of a molehill. Like these are not the things I'm worried about. This isn't somebody touching the vertical truss or anything.
That is important. You could gain 1/16th of a second by doing that, you know.
I mean, in that particular race, I was the one that was furiously arguing, do not penalize this guy 10 minutes for this. I was livid. I was like, I had a shouting match with Coble and Watson about it, that race years ago in Jacksonville when they penalized Woodsy 10 minutes for touching the truss. I said, just dock him one place, like just dock him like a couple seconds and dock him the place. And that's it. And I mean, like, again, punishment must fit the crime, whatever it is. So in this scenario, I wouldn't DQ her or him for that. No. You know, I don't know what are we getting out of this? So I think he's just being supportive and have a chit chat with him if you're really upset about it, you know?
Exactly. It's probably something that just needs to be written down in the rules and stuff like that. And that's all. I just like to point out, you know, glaring omissions and such.
Yeah. So, you know what? There's less of that happening in these hybrid races now. Everything's clean. Everything.
Nobody ever does anything wrong there.
Of course not. Apparently, Forrest got run into one of the barriers during the race this weekend. So by a familiar character.
Oh boy.
Not me, the familiar character, the other familiar character.
So it would have had to been the first lap. So
this is up there. Yeah.
That was when he was there. Oh man, that guy. I'm sure he's a good guy. he had a bad first lap.
Yeah. And then a rough day from there on out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, going in, I can go on that race with you guys and I could lead the first 100 meters, I mean, I'm going to get blown away the rest of it, but what's the point? I don't understand the logic of, especially when he had to do all that crazy shit to get out there. Like if it just happens, hey, I'm blasted out of the gate and I'm in first for 30 seconds, so be it. But
well, I think from what I understand, like he was on the podium in the Atlanta race.
Yeah.
And I think you come in with an air of confidence. You come off a podium finish. Yeah, like I'm going to compete with the big boys. And then the big boys show up to run a real race.
Yeah.
And it's there are tiers to racing, right? There are tiers to athletes. And I think sometimes you have to race against some of the higher tier people to understand where you fall in the hierarchy. Like I know in Spartan and obstacle racing, I know what tier I sit in precisely because I've raced these guys so many times. But if you haven't, you think you have your shot, you want to take your shot, right?
Yeah.
And everybody wants to take their shot. And so I get it, but like there's a way to do it. There's a way to not do it. And just run smart and responsible. I mean, I still, we still came out. It did not have a dramatic impact on the race, but I will say I definitely think it slowed me down. Getting cleated in the Achilles and then limping around for the rest of the day is not a good way to start your race, but we still, Rich and I both still went under the world record. So like, it didn't like impact that fully, but this is how the ball bounces sometimes. And Faye went under the world record. We need to kind of touch on that as well.
Faye just blew my mind the way she destroyed that. And she was just so fast, how fast is Faye? Yeah. Like
She's very fast. She's very fast. It's funny. The first thing she said to me once she saw her time, she crossed the finish line and she goes, how the hell did you guys beat me by like 4 minutes? And, because she was running, it looked like she was running so fast. We were like, oh my God, this is crazy. And remember the first thing I said to her before the race, she goes, any advice? I said, take it easy for the first 2 rounds. Like, don't blow the doors off it. And then Faye comes out of the gates, like hard charging. And I think she suffered immensely for the final 5 rounds or so, but she's tough. She's tough. She didn't have technique on a lot of those stations, but her overall fitness is so high.
Well, do you know what her overall 5K was?
I have to check, but I think it was like in the mid 18s. But again, like this was not a normal Dekafit run course. Like my simulations, I do like 15:30 for the 5Ks, and I was like 17 something in this. This was not.
Oh wow.
This was not fast.
So then for her to beat Lauren and Renee's time from the last one is probably really significant.
Really significant. She only beat it by like 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And the way she was running, I was like, wow, she's going to blow the doors off this thing.
She was actually 5th overall. So
she was, yeah.
Yeah. So she came 5th overall. And I mean, like you say, right off the start, because I was watching the whole thing and I'm like, and 100 meters in, she's gone. I'm like, okay.
Gone. Yeah.
She's.
And it's not like Tara Jackson ran slow.
Tara Jackson ran amazing.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. When she came by, I was like, oh, she's the real deal.
Yeah. I was, because she won Atlanta, but Atlanta had, maybe not quite as high a caliber of field. But so I was the same thing. I'm like, I don't know if maybe she's good, maybe she's not. But she was smoking fast. I was really impressed.
And then Cassidy finished 3rd in the heat, but only 5th overall because 2 people from the next heat beat her. First, we were like, wait, did she get penalized? What happened? But no, that's the time trial format for you. And that won't happen often. That's not, once the field gets a little deeper, that will never happen. But it does happen occasionally in stadium races.
Yeah. I mean, you get people you don't know. Again, if they were seeding that Savage race, that maybe that Sean guy, he might not have been in the front, because they don't know him, right? So either way, Faye was just outstanding. I hope that she gets some competition.
Yeah. Oh, she will. I mean, look, what would Rebecca Hammond do in this race?
That would be deadly. Yeah.
That would be
Similar.
That would be sweet. I think Rebecca Hammond has a real good shot to have a war with Faye out there because she's so strong too, and she figures stations out. She's very good with all that stuff as well. I don't know who else might be really good. I have to sit and think because the speed is so important in Deca. Like, Alec Blennis told me before the race, he's like, yeah, like I don't have my running fitness where I want to be, but like I'm so strong and I'm good at hit. Like he's like, I'm just gonna blast the stations and it'll be fine. And I was like, no, man, I think your strategy is not gonna work very well. Like you're not gonna make up enough time on the stations. He's like, I'll make up so much on the air bike, it won't matter. No.
I've been saying this from the beginning. I think that Deca really suits my partner here. I think she will do really well at it.
Nothing. Yeah.
She's a good runner and has great fitness on the other stuff too. So I think that, definitely more than High Rocks, maybe a little too slight for the High Rocks sometime, but
yeah, didn't quite suit my size.
If you're good at running workouts and compromised run workouts and like compromised miles and compromised 5Ks, like, yeah, it's right up your alley. And like I said, like it's, like High Rocks. What do you think? Do you think High Rocks was a little too heavy for you?
For me, yeah, the push was okay, but I found the pull just destroyed me. I could barely move it.
The pull is carnage, guys.
Yeah.
It's really is. I've learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah.
Well, that pull sled is like 3 times your weight. Like
the push sled is 3 times my weight.
Oh, the push sled's 3 times your weight. Yeah.
The pull sled's probably still like 2 times your weight.
Yeah.
But, like you'd think that like the pull would not be that bad. It's terrible.
I didn't worry about it as much as the push because I was like, oh, it's not as heavy. And when you do simulations, but I just found the length of the rope, getting the tension out of the rope, because ours was 25 meters and then 25 meters, was just shockingly difficult to even get it to move at the very beginning when the rope is at its longest length.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So
I've seen your 5K times, and I mean, are not up to phase standard or anything like that. They're not quite there, but I've seen like your lunges and your regular workouts and stuff are just smoking fast. And that, I think you do really well. That's just my 2 cents. I'd put money on you.
I want to see it. Let's see it.
Yeah.
Get on Daddy Atkins' plane and get down there.
Yeah, I know.
All right. I think that's good enough for today.
Yeah.
Bethany, do you have anything else?
No, that's great. Thanks so much for joining us again. Congrats again on the weekend. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you race again soon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Next time is High Rocks. So here we go. All over again.